Good afternoon. This is John Mustaro once again bringing you We Are in Puglia USA. This is the weekly show to highlight everything Pugliese. Pugliese food, Pugliese music, Pugliese people, culture, and history. We do this because we want to encourage people to visit our beautiful country, Puglia, the heel of the boot. Today, we have a special guest. We're going to be doing a music show again, and I would like you to meet our special guest, born in Puglia, and a good friend of mine, Mauro Giuliani, a Apulian born and raised, talking today at the We Are in Puglia radio show. Good afternoon, Mauro.
Good afternoon, John. Thank you for having me today here.
It's our pleasure. It's our pleasure. And you were born in Puglia, right?
Yes, I was born in Bari.
And you now live in New York?
Yes, I moved to New York 7 years ago.
You arrived here 7 years ago?
Yes.
Where did you learn how to speak English?
Well, I learned in school, of course, elementary, middle, and high school. And then, I guess, as a preparation for the college, I did 1 year in college here. And so, yes, everyone has to learn English very well.
Mm-hmm. Of course. I understand, or I know, that you are an accomplished violinist. Could you tell us a little bit about your CV?
Sure. I'm a classically trained violinist, and I play kind of everything from solo to chamber music to orchestra. I perform in 2 co-founded chamber music projects here in New York territory. And I also am part of the New Britain Symphony Orchestra, a Connecticut-based orchestra. So I'm quite busy here, and I love being involved in all of it.
Especially when it comes to Puglia, I guess, right?
Of course, I'm very passionate about Puglia and the music from Puglia.
Well, let's segue into that topic while we're on it. Could you give us? We're going to play some pieces today.
Yes.
That you performed, that you recorded. That's actually you playing the violin.
Yes.
Could you give us a little panoramic of the pieces that you chose?
Sure. So I choose and self-recorded for this episode all pieces from Apulian composers, except for one that still has strong family ties to Puglia. You will hear later on. In the order, we will explore music by Saverio Mercadante, Raffaele Gervasio, Mauro Giuliani, Astor Piazzolla, and Domenico Modulo too. And you will be probably wondering why I chose these pieces, and the reason is because I found them very agreeable to a general ear, even the less classically trained or into classical music one. And it's an occasion for me to bring up, talk about music from Puglia, but also classical music in a less technical way, let's see.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that you're trying to make it appealing to the listeners.
Yes, I will try my best.
Okay. Why don't we go on to a description of the pieces? The first piece?
Yes, sure. So the first piece that we are going to hear is a piece by Saverio Mercadante, and it's from the first duetto concertante for 2 flutes that he wrote. What I recorded is a movement called Andante La Siciliana, which is actually for 2 flutes, as you heard already, but I played on violin, recorded both tracks and put them together. This is because we often do that with flute repertoire, with violinists. I mean, we take flute repertoire and play it. That's pretty common for us. And this duet was particularly appealing for me, and that's why I choose it. Okay, so we are going to hear now the Andante alla Siciliana from Mercadante.
Very beautiful. Thank you, Lauda. It sounded like there was more than just a violin there, though.
Yes, there were two violins. I mean, originally the piece is for two flutes, but I played it on violin, so I doubled myself for the occasion.
Ah, so, okay, interesting. I didn't know you could do that.
Yes, when you record, definitely you can do that. Live, it's impossible, of course.
Right, so you just played one and then dub
Yes.
another one on top of it.
Yes, and then I hear myself in the headphones and I play on top of it and record the
Wow.
second track. Yes,
Fantastic.
yes. That's basically new discovery of the pandemic time. Lots of recordings and occasions to do everything by yourself, basically.
Hmm.
Yes, even a multi-track.
Do you do this in your home, or do you have a studio, or?
I do not have a studio, but I try my best at my place. Yes.
Okay. You actually started with one of my favorites, Mercadante, and you know why, of course, right?
Yes. Yes. He's from Altamura
From
here.
Altamura, right?
Yes.
And I stay in a hotel in Altamura that's right across the street from Mercadante's birthplace.
Yes, I saw his house on the internet. I mean, I never visited it in person, but it looks really beautiful.
And there's the recently refurbished Teatro Mercadante in Altamura,
Yes.
and it was refurbished by a good friend of mine, Vito Barozzi.
Oh,
And I had the pleasure of being able to see it the last time I was there. Unfortunately, I haven't been there in a while due to the pandemic, maybe 2 years ago. But
yeah.
the theater is absolutely gorgeous. It's a beautiful theater. It's in the old style. It has the boxes on the side, and it's all red velvet and
Very nice.
very nice and gilded. They did a good job in restoring it.
I will make sure to visit it next time.
Right. But he's quite well known in Altamura, especially in Puglia.
Yes. Well, yes. He was born in 1795 and passed away in 1870. So, actually, if we think about it, not such a long time ago. And he was, of course, a composer, but he also studied flute and violin himself. In the wrote mainly for flute and also for the opera field, vocal chamber music and so on. And he was well known also at his time. Indeed, Rossini recognized his talent when he was a student at the conservatory in Naples, and that's quite an acknowledgement.
Yeah, I think unfortunately for him, he was born in a time, or he was popular in a time when people like Rossini and Verdi overshadowed him. So he didn't get the recognition that was due him.
Yes, but at least when he started, Rossini gave him quite some credit. So
I wanted to embark on a project. As you know, I'm sure you know, he was buried in Naples.
yes,
And I started a project to get his remains moved back to Altamura.
oh,
But the Napolitanos won't allow it.
I see.
They consider him a Napolitano.
Yes, I understand that. And he also wrote lots of music that relates to Naples, such as Neapolitan songs. So, of course, one is tied to both places, the one where you are born and raised and the one where you move to and work. I totally understand this, but it
Sure.
would, of course, be nice to have him back.
I think it's impossible, but we keep trying.
You keep trying. Okay.
They've done it with other musicians, but not as famous as Mercadante.
I see.
He's too well known for the Napolitanos to give him up.
I understand that.
But people who are visiting Puglia should make a stop, definitely in Altamura, for a number of reasons. One is to see the theater,
Sure.
and actually attend a performance. There's performances there all year round. I don't know how it's going now with the pandemic, but you should go there not only for the delicious bread, but you should also go there to see some of the sights. And the Mercadante Theater is one of them. You should see the statue of him outside, visit his birthplace, and all over the city there's little placards commemorating him and showing where he learned the flute and what churches he played at, etc.
Very nice.
What do we have next on the agenda, Laura?
Next we have a piece by Gervasio, and so this piece, I want to introduce it before the track is played, is from the Dialoghi della Bilancia, Opus 97 for 2 violins. This is originally for 2 violins. I didn't make it up. And I recorded the final variation. And okay, let me talk about it after the track is played.
Thank you, Laura.
You're very welcome.
That piece was done the same way, I guess, the same technique?
Yes.
Recorded once and then...
Yes, 2 violins, two separate tracks put together.
Interesting. So, Gervasio.
Gervasio, yes, Raffaele Gervasio.
He's Barese? He was born in Bari?
Yes, he was born in Bari and also worked in Bari, and he was also a violinist himself, on top of being a composer. And his music is not even easy to play on violin. It's quite challenging. This that I recorded is a violin duo, as I already mentioned many times, and it might sound almost scary at first, very modern in the harmonies, kind of similar to Bartók's music, but absolutely grandiose. And the very end of it, it kind of reminds me of another piece by him that I recorded in a chamber ensemble back in Puglia many years ago called Rapsodia su canti di Puglia. So it's a very, very specific piece on Pugliese traditional music. Unfortunately, I couldn't play that in radio because I don't own the rights to that. But yes, I decided for this other one, which is a big contrast to the Mercadante we heard before.
Yes. What time period, Gervasio?
Yes, so he was born in 1910 and passed away in 1994. So it's
contemporary.
Yes, quite modern. He accepted in 1967. He accepted the chair of composition at the Piccini Conservatory of Bari from Nino Rota, who called him.
Of course.
Yeah, so
we did some we did some Nino Rota stuff a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I missed that one.
Yeah, we did some of his famous movie themes, and everybody I talked to knows the theme from The Godfather.
Of course, yes.
But nobody knows it was a Nino Rota composition.
That's too bad.
And everybody was saying, well, he was born in Naples, I think. Why?
No, he was born in Bari.
Nino Rota was born in Bari?
Oh, no, you were talking, I thought you were talking about Gervasio. No, Nino Rota was born in Milan, actually.
Milan, right.
Yes.
So everybody was saying, why are you playing, what's his roots? So I explained to them that he was the director of the music hall in Bari.
Exactly. So he was born in Milan, but he spent, I guess, 30 years of his life in Bari as a director of the former Liceo Musicale, which then became the Conservatory of Music.
He also did the theme for La Strada, too.
Yes, and many more.
Many more, like 150, I think.
And other, yes.
I think they voted the Godfather theme one of the top 5 of every movie theme that was ever written.
Yes,
was in the
it's
top
very,
5.
very, very popular.
That whole music, the score from the whole.
Yes, the entire score, yes.
It's beautiful,
very
beautiful
stuff. Yes.
The man was a genius, let's face it. He was fantastic.
Yeah, and Gervasio was not less than Nino Rota, perhaps less well known to the general audience, but he also wrote original repertoire music for documentaries, theatrical performances, and feature films, including the show Carosello Napoletano, which you probably know.
Yes, I do know it, yes.
Yes, and that later became a movie too. So. And also cultural radio segments and repertoire music and tunes for the RAI, Radio Television, Italian Radio Television. So
cool.
He was a very interesting composer.
One thing we like to do on the We Are in Puglia USA every week is we try to highlight one of the towns or one of the cities. And we're talking about Bari, so let's talk a little bit about Bari. Why people would visit Bari? I know it's like the 7th largest city in all of Italy.
Yes.
It's about 350,000 people, I think.
Yes, you're right. Well, first of all, it's my pleasure to talk about my hometown.
Sure, please do.
Okay, so Bari is a harbor city. That's the first thing that comes to my mind when I'm asked to talk about Bari. And has a beautiful promenade on the sea, facing Greece, right on the other side of the Adriatic Sea. And as you said already, it's a major city in Italy, especially in the south, and has a very well-maintained city center and old town where you don't need a car to stroll around and can admire many little houses in white stone with cute little balconies, windows with hand-broidered curtains, and some elderlies practicing craftsmanship, and some old women still making the special pasta called orecchiette. For those that don't know it, it means little ears because of their shape. And they do it with their own hands still. So it's very characteristic and beautiful altogether. It's a city that lives of tourism, so unfortunately perhaps a bit less now due to the COVID pandemic. But the craft sector and some related industries are also well developed. And then we have 2 beautiful theaters in Bari, the Petruzzelli and the Piccini ones.
I've been in both of them.
Yes, me too. And the first reopened a bit over a decade ago after a very long forced activities break caused by a terrible accident that burned it almost completely back in 1984, unfortunately. But now it's back into operative mode.
I was there for the opening night.
Oh, for the reopening.
The reopening.
Oh,
no, I was a little bit too young for when it was open in 1900.
Sure, of course. Yes, I wasn't there for the reopening, but I read the concert reviews, and I saw that Fabio Mastrangelo was conducting the orchestra. He is well known in Russia now. Yes, the second one, the Piccini, reopened a bit more recently after some maintenance work. And the same happened also to the Cursa Santa Lucia, which you probably know is a small but really elegant kind of old-fashioned movie and performing theater. that used to host concerts and chamber music series. I recall to have played there sometimes when I used to live in Bari. And I should probably mention also the Niccolo Piccini Music Conservatory in Bari.
Okay.
And the Nino Rota 1, which is in the neighbor town of Monopoli, a short drive south from Bari, very beautiful, also neighbor, town on the sea.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I guess this brings us back to the music.
Well, it's a couple of things that I want to mention also. I know that the last time I was there was 2019, I guess.
Yes.
And I noticed that Mayor De Caro made one of the streets like a pedestrian mall. I forget which street it was. It's one of the big wide streets in Bari. But now it's closed to traffic.
Okay.
And
I haven't been there
Right.
for the last 2 years as well, unfortunately, due to the pandemic. So I'm not the most up-to-date person to ask to.
Oh, neither am I. But it struck me how he was so creative about making this. The street is it's wider than Park Avenue. I should know the name of it, but I don't.
Okay.
And I was there in December when they were celebrating the feast of San Nicola,
Yes.
and I was there for the lighting of the Christmas tree, which is at the end of this street.
Yes, I see. Okay, so the one that leads into Piazza del Ferrarese, probably. The Muraglia that leads into the
okay.
Piazza del Ferrarese, and you're probably talking about that. Okay.
Okay, you would know better than I. Also, one of the places that most people want to visit when they go to Bari is the Church of San Nicola.
Of course, yes.
That's
Yes.
in a part of the old town.
Yes, and that's also an Orthodox church in the crypta, we can say the basement area, the crypta. Yes.
Oh, okay.
Very.
There's also the opportunity to skip hotels. I recently found this out. The forward-thinking capital of the Puglia region has turned many traditional apartments scattered amongst the modern. These typically lie in the city's oldest section. And you can have you could rent one of these apartments and have your own courtyard. It's almost like being a Barese if you want to explore that part of Bari.
Yes,
Instead of staying in a hotel.
that's probably the most authentic way to experience the town.
Hmm.
Yes,
It
I would encourage people to do that, definitely.
Also, Lungomare is a beautiful part of the
Of
city.
course. As I
That's-
said, the promenade, I call it that way. But
Right. The promenade is long stretch along the sea, and one of the most important events they have in Bari is the Fiera del Levante,
yes,
which is coming up, I guess. I don't know if they're going to do it this year, though.
I don't know. I don't know either. But it's
Yeah.
usually between the end of August and beginning of September.
Right.
Yes.
It's a huge
Yes.
trade fair, and it's held in a convention center similar to our Javits Center here in New York,
Yes, and close to the harbor.
close to the
Yes.
harbor, and it's vendors from all over the world who
Yes.
come there to display their newest products, their newest inventions. It's quite famous all over Europe. So
Yes.
if you happen to be in Puglia or Bari in that period of time, I would encourage you to at least visit the Fiera del Levante.
Definitely.
So let's go back to our theme of the music.
Yes. So
What do we have next?
we do have Mauro Giuliani, which has been already the protagonist of another episode, the one from Thomas Miliotto. I will cover Mauro Giuliani very, very quickly for that reason. I mean, it's been already, explained and presented widely enough. But today I have a clip that is the only one that I didn't record at home, so to say. But it's from a live concert that we did at Opera America in 2018. And so it's a live clip, and unfortunately it's an iPhone clip, so not the best audio, but still gives an idea about chamber music selection from Giuliani. So you hear not just the guitar alone, but in a duo with violin. And what we are going to play now is the Opus 74, number 16 by him. The movement is called Vivace. And we can say something about it.
That was beautiful, but I'm partial towards Mauro Giuliani. This was a concert you did for me, wasn't it?
Yes, for the United Pugliese Federation back in 2018. Yes.
Let me just interject at this point. If anybody's interested in talking to us about our shows or our future shows, please give us a call. Our number is 347-444-6687. 347-444-6687. So, Laura, sorry to interrupt you.
No problem.
Every week I forget to give that number, and I didn't want to forget it again.
Of course.
But go ahead.
Yes, so you were asking me about the concert that we did.
Yes, you did that for me. I remember it. Yes.
Yes. It was back then in 2018 when, before the pandemic, so everything was running on schedule, let's say. This piece that we played in that concert is a vivace, so you could hear quite festive one. And it's a short one, part of a delightful collection of duets defined by Giuliani himself, agreeable. That concert was almost an all Giuliani chamber music concert, and it was very nice because we played lots of pieces by him. This one has a Viennese waltz character, which Giuliani was fond of, having spent part of his life in Vienna. It also displays opera-like themes and some virtuosity traits typical of the instrumental music at that time. And I have a curiosity about Giuliani that you might want to hear.
Sure.
So there are rumors of him having been a close friend of Franz Schubert and possibly his guitar mentor.
Wow.
Yes. Some people say that basically Giuliani introduced Franz Schubert, which is a very well-known composer of the past, to the guitar, which at that time was not a very popular instrument, but Giuliani really made a difference and introduced the guitar to lots of people, to a wide audience at that time. So I think that it really made this instrument in the Apulian region very popular in Vienna.
Oh, as you know, he's my favorite, I'm like a newcomer to Giuliani, probably around 10, 15 years ago. My son was a guitarist.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and he studies. His name is John, just like me, and he studies classical guitar, electric guitar, acoustical guitar.
Great.
And he introduced me to this fellow Giuliani, and he says, "Hey, Dad, do you know that he's from Puglia?" And I said, "Wow, So right away, he piqued my interest.
Of course.
And he gave me a bunch of Giuliani CDs, and I absolutely love his music.
Yes,
I can listen to his music all day.
Yes. It's a very interesting mix between operatic music and instrumental music. You can almost hear the way things were sounding in the opera world at that time in his instrumental music. Mm-hmm. It's very, very interesting.
Is he well known in Puglia?
He is. He totally is. Yes, my former teacher used to play his grand duo in many concerts. So.
But there's not a monument anywhere for him, I don't think, right? Anywhere in Puglia?
I don't think so.
He
Not
was-
that I know.
He was also buried in Naples, I think.
Probably.
Yeah,
I'm not familiar with that, so
me neither, but I think that's where he was. Anyway,
it's possible. So for me, this was a very, very short explanation about Giuliani's music because, again, it was covered already in a previous episode, and you had a Giuliani expert there, and so I leave the curiosity of the listeners to that episode, which they can find back online.
right. Thank you.
No problem.
Okay, next. What's next?
Next, we have composer who's actually not from Puglia himself. He's from Argentina, so you might already get an idea of who I'll be talking about. But his father was from Trani, which is another city in Puglia, in the north side of Puglia. And so we sort of define him as adoptive Pugliese because of his family ties to Puglia. And so the piece that will be played now is called Adios, Nonino by Astor Piazzolla. And I recorded it in the solo violin arrangement by Caroline Pearsall from the London Tango Orchestra. And you will hear it now.
Wow. I don't think people are used to that style of tango.
Maybe not. But yeah, if the audience is familiar with Astor Piazzolla, then probably yes.
Mm-hmm. But you mentioned Trani. I was in Trani many years ago. It's another beautiful seaport city that if people visit Puglia should have that on their agenda. I particularly remember having a delicious seafood dinner in Trani, which is the many of the beautiful restaurants in Puglia are along the seashore. But I remember particularly having a good meal in Trani. So tell me about this style of, well, first of all, Adios Nonino.
Mm-hmm.
Goodbye, Grandpa?
Yes, that's the story behind this title. It's still a tango piece, but quite a sad one, because it's a musical goodbye that Piazzolla wrote from the perspective of his son in dedication to his grandfather. So Piazzolla's dead after he passed away. Nonino is the way the child used to call his grandfather, probably an Italian-American diminutive of Nonnino, from nonno, grandfather in Italian.
Mm-hmm. My grandkids call me Nonno.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure they do. And so it's one of his Tango Nuevo compositions, but it has a particularly sad character in it.
That's what you would call it, Tango Nuovo? Is that what you call it?
Yes, Tango Nuevo, because it's an instrumental genre. So Piazzolla brought the tango to the next level. That's how I like to say. Adding new instrumentation and lots of jazz and popular influences, being him from Buenos Aires. And I think probably the background of his parents being both Italian and father Apulian helped him in a way to express all these folk and traditional influences in music. I can hear lots of Spanish and Mediterranean flavor in his music, so it doesn't surprise me at all.
Do you did you ever learn how to dance the tango?
Oh, I once attempted to learn how to dance tango, but it's not easy at all. Anyway, it gave me some extra insight on how some of those cool tango music effects on the violin are supposed to sound. And you heard many in this piece, actually. If you want, I can explain a few of them.
Sure.
Yeah, for instance, we had Glissandos. Glissandos are rapid motion of the left hand on the fingerboard from one pitch to a much higher one or a much lower one. And then what do they represent? In theory, they represent the feet on the ground, the feet of the dancers on the ground. They never leave the ground in the tango music. They are always in touch with it. And then you heard some percussive effects, knocking on the violin's wood. That's also, of course, because of the shoes, the particular shoes that are used in the tango music.
That, you know where I heard that once before too, in a Rossini composition.
Oh yes, he used a lot of percussive effects too. Yes,
tapping on the podium.
Oh yes.
Interesting.
He did too. Yes. So you see, there are some times there as well. And then what else? I used also a ponticello effect. What is ponticello? So in Italian, it means little bridge. Okay, so it of course refers to the bridge of the violin, and playing on the ponticello means that you use the bow, in particular the bow hair, right there on the bridge. So they are in touch with the strings on top of the bridge in that contact point, and they make a particular sound which is I can define it pretty rough and sandy. Mm-hmm. And that's also part of the spirit of the tango music. And I don't recall any particular other effect. Okay, sometimes portamentos, of course, because it's romantic, still romantic, very romantic and passionate music. And also some flageolets or harmonic sounds. Yes, to have a touch of magic.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay. All right. I might mention at this point the bandoneon was the instrument that Astor Piazzolla mastered.
Yes.
It's a kind of a concertina that was invented in Germany, but it's so complicated that the Germans gave up on it, and the Argentinians decided to cover it, right? And it was used a lot in churches, believe it or not, church marches.
No, I can believe it, because the sound is very close to the organ sound, so that
right.
makes sense.
But it was banned from the church for a while
Of course.
because it was used in brothels too.
Yes.
So the church banned it.
Of course, not allowed. Yes.
But let's go on.
As you just said, I mean, Piazzolla introduced a lot of instruments in the Tango Nuevo style, and some of them were the bandoneon and the electric guitar too, which was not common at that time yet. So it's really, really cool to listen to.
Who is the next artist you want to highlight?
The next one is Domenico Modulo, of course.
Of course.
Of course.
Next week, well, go ahead. I don't want to take your thunder, but go ahead.
Oh, no problem. So Domenico Modulo, as you probably know, is from Polignano Mare, which is a really wonderful little town south from Bari. It's very close to Bari, so if people visit Bari, they totally should go to Polignano Mare as well. Domenico Modulo was a singer-songwriter, we can define it that way, and a master of popular music who lived between the beginning of the 20th century and the end of it. And I will present today a particular arrangement of one of perhaps his most popular tune called Volare, which we can translate as flying in English, I guess. So I'll first let the track be played and then talk a little bit more.
quite beautiful, Laura. I don't think I've ever heard Volare played on a violin that way.
Thank you.
But it was fantastic.
Thank you so much.
I enjoy, as everybody does, Modulo.
Yes.
Do you want to talk a little bit about Domenico Modulo?
Sure, and I want to say something about this track now.
Sure.
I was conceived basically first, and then I'll talk a bit about Modulo as well. So this track is for violin and jazz guitar, recorded together with an amazing jazz guitarist named Dario Chiazzolino, guitarist and composer too, whose family roots are also Apulian, by the way. And I am not a jazz musician, but we decided for a bossa nova-like Brazilian jazz style for this version of the song, and I wanted it to sound free, like the image of flying, and a bit like the music from a movie scene from the time of Modulo. And that's how it came up. And nothing really well planned, but pretty spontaneous. And yes, this is what you heard.
It was beautiful. Very good. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah.
We dedicated a past show to Modulo, but it's worth talking about him again for a few minutes.
Yes, sure. I mean, Modulo, as I already mentioned, was a singer-songwriter. So he wrote lots of very popular tunes that were played on TV too. He performed them himself, and he was also an actor. And actually, one of his movies was called Il Maestro di Violino, which means the violin teacher. So he must have had a personal connection to the violin, I think. Yes, and I think Volare is really nice played on violin as well.
Yeah, as I mentioned in
it works well, right?
Yeah, it does. It does. It was juxtaposed on another, with I guess a keyboard in the background.
It was an electric guitar,
okay.
Jazz guitar, actually, to be specific.
So there was two of you playing that piece.
Yes, I already mentioned the duo partner this time is Dario Chiazzolino for this track. Dario Chiazzolino is a really, really amazing jazz guitarist and composer. Also kind of Apulian.
We'll make sure he's Apulian.
Sure, of course.
Okay, that was it. Very interesting lecture. Let's focus the next few minutes on Puglia in general. As I said at the beginning of the show, one of the things we're trying to do with this series of Puglia shows is encourage people to discover Puglia.
Yes.
And it's not as popular a place as you would say as let's say Tuscany.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's right now it's in style. Puglia is definitely in style now. People are discovering it. People are starting to go there. People are starting to take trips.
Yes, and it was also featured on National Geographic and also the New York Times. So I think people should really give much more credit to Puglia in general.
Yeah, so do I. In fact, we've been talking on the show about trips to Puglia, and in the next couple of weeks I'm going to be talking about another trip to Puglia, but on a more intimate level, a small group tour that it kind of appeals to me, a small group tour. But I'll be giving more details about that in one of the future shows.
Sure.
But right now, as I said, Puglia is in style. It's very economic to visit. Airfares are reasonable, and
yeah, the costs of living are definitely much more reasonable than those in New York City. At least it was so before the pandemic. They might have gone a little bit more up, but I'm not even sure about that.
They've gone up a little bit, but still, it's very, very economical to visit. The way you get there is go to either Rome or Milan,
Sure.
and then take a short flight from either one of those two jump-off points to Bari.
Yes.
It's about an hour's flight from
Yes.
there.
Yes.
Well, there's other ways of going. I think the last time I went, I think I went with Lufthansa into Germany, and then one of the Munich.
Of course. Yes,
into
you have
Bari.
connections through Germany or through France as well. Paris, for instance.
Right. It's easy to get there. The people are typical Southern Italians. Very warm. Very warm.
Yes, yes.
Especially they want to learn a lot about Americans.
They're very curious, yes.
Very curious about Americans. If you mention you're an American, they swarm around you. They want to know about this country. They want to know about what they read about this country is true, and they just open up their hearts and their homes to you.
Yes.
And you can't beat the food in Puglia.
And they'll also do their best to speak English with you.
That's right. Yeah, they'll try their best.
Yes.
And don't be afraid to try to use your Italian with them.
Of course.
What little Italian I know, I get by with
Yes. You get by with gestures anyway.
That's right. Italians are great for using their hands instead of words.
Right.
Okay, Laura, we have about 1 minute left. Do you want to give final greetings?
Sure. Thanks a lot again for having me here in the radio show today. I hope you enjoyed it. And I really had fun preparing for it and recording all the music and talking about it.
It was great having you here. We enjoyed very much your virtuosity. I'm impressed.
Thank you, John.
And thank you very much for being with us today.
My pleasure.
Thanks again. And folks,
You're very welcome.
tune in again next week for our next session. Thank you.